Hey, good people, I'm your life coach, Shanese Powell, and I noticed that there are way too many individuals either unfamiliar with coaching, unable to afford it, or they're just not aware of how much it can do for their lives. This is why I started the What I Need podcast. The WIN podcast creates a space for people to access, well, what they need. We explore mental health by bringing awareness to our good and bad habits that help us or hurt us. We're just here to have those kinds of conversations that you need, they need, and what I need. Let's win together, good people. All right, beautiful. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
We spoke a little bit, we came on here, I want to say 5 minutes before, so we got a little time to warm up and say how you doing and whatnot. But for the sake of the people who are watching, tell us a little bit how you doing. How has your week been? This is a Friday, so we can talk a little bit about how the week has been from Monday to Friday.
Yeah, for me, I will say it's been hectic. It's been a roller coaster. It's been busy, but I'm just happy to be here at Friday.
Love it, love it. We made it to Friday, y'all.
Yes.
We made it to Friday. All right. How are you doing, Phoenix? Or how has it been this week?
Yeah, I would say the same. This week has been exhausting, full of appointments, full of meetings, but it seems like every day as I move towards Friday, I get a little more energy. So I am very happy that it is Friday, and I'm going to try and enjoy this 10-second weekend that feels like it's always a couple minutes, and I'm back to it. So I'm going to make the most of it.
Yeah. When I tell you the weekends are for 10 seconds, I mean it. Like the entire Friday evening to Saturday into Sunday, because Sunday is basically pre-Monday.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's preparation for the hectic week that is coming on. And even if you're not physically doing anything, mentally, you're like, okay, I have to get back in the groove of things. So you are already, your wires are already, crossing, and you're moving, your brain is doing all the work already. So yeah, it's 10 seconds. It's 10. Yes. But yeah, I'm really excited to be on here with you ladies. I met Daja at a women's summit.
Yeah.
I want to say about 3 weeks ago, and it was fantastic. And you and I were just actually participants.
Yeah.
So you weren't on the panel, but there were some lovely ladies on the panel that we gleaned a lot from. And I felt the room being so full of value, so full of worth. It was so many women who were on a mission, women on a mission. And I was so inspired by that space. I just wanted to capture it in a little bottle and keep it at my home, right? So I can always just pop it open and get that good inspirational energy to just continue to do my own mission. All right. So I met Daja face to face, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Daja does, because she's one of those women who, has a mission and is on that mission. I want you to tell me a little bit more about it, Daja, as well as you, Phoenix. So you guys tell me what it is that you do.
Yeah, sure. So right now I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I have a background in mental health counseling, specifically a master's in clinical counseling from Brenau University. Currently, I serve as an MST supervisor. We service Hall and DeKalb counties with families and juveniles in those counties. And so I also work in private practice where I offer individual and counseling sessions. I wear many hats, but all falling under the umbrella of mental health awareness, advocacy, and then also leading into how we all met, specifically at this Women's Summit. We were there on behalf of She Inc., which is me and Phoenix's organization. She is an acronym for Sisters Healing and Evolving, excuse me.
Oh, Sisters Healing and Evolving.
Yes.
Okay.
Sisters Healing and Evolving.
Right.
And our whole mission basically is to help destigmatize mental health in the Black community with a focus in Black women, providing additional resources and accessibility to mental health resources with that focus. And so we founded She in 2020. And so it's been 3 years of us kind of putting in work in different ways. Thank you. Different ways and different avenues, just really getting out there, finding a problem and helping come up with a solution. So that's really what She is. And I'll let Phoenix talk a little bit about her background.
Yes, yes. So my name is SaPhenixx, but I go by Phoenix. And I'm also a therapist. My educational background started at Kennesaw State University. And once I graduated, I went to Brunel University where I met Daja. And from there, I graduated with a master's in clinical counseling, and I kind of jumped feet first into the realm of therapy. And so part-time, I provide therapy to children and adolescents in Conyers, Georgia, dealing with various issues like depression, anxiety, oppositional defiant disorder. But full-time, I work with Chris 180, and I oversee other therapists, and we provide therapy services for residents in the west side of Atlanta, which is an underserved and underprivileged population. But the passion for me with therapy started very early. I actually attended therapy sessions when I was a child, but also I think it was very evident that there weren't many people that looked like me or connected to my specific story. And so I think it was a blessing that Daja and I met in grad school because we had a similar interest in promoting and uplifting the Black community. And so that was another thing that we kind of wanted to expound on when starting She. And so I think creating She and having She as a resource for Black women has been great in allowing other Black women, millennial Black women to be exact, to see what it's like and to be able to connect with our experiences, but also to see that we have a common ground for wanting to grow as women in society.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you guys are absolutely impressive. I usually like to start off with knowing a little bit more about you, the individual, because you can have an absolutely impressive background, right? And you guys have studied counseling, and you guys are licensed therapists and are out there doing amazing, beautiful things. But who are these lovely individuals who are doing these amazing, beautiful things? I like to meet you, the person. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of She Inc. and what it's doing in our community. But before we do that, we want to just meet you guys, or you ladies, to know you just a little bit more. So Phoenix, since you were already on the platform, if you would just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay. I would say that I am a fighter. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say a fist fighter, but I typically advocate for what is right and what feels good, even if it doesn't necessarily mean the best when it comes to standing up in public. I think my mom kind of instilled in me, always be the best, always fight for what's right and use your voice. And I think, you know, even in grad school, we had to utilize that a lot, being not only women, but a small portion of a percentage of Black women at the organization or the school. I think we had to use our voice a lot. And I think that empowered us even more to expand that professionally and advocating for Black women. So yeah, I would say I'm a fighter. I'm very passionate. I love to have fun. I believe that we can uplift each other. There's enough room for everybody to make a little money and get a slice of the pie. And so I'm just all about growing. And I think I've been more intentional over the last few years of making sure that my connections also foster that type of environment to also grow with them.
Got you. Love it. Daja, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yes, I think this is an interesting way to start because typically, you know, we talk about the professional aspect of us, and then the personal side kind of takes a back seat. So I appreciate you even asking us about us as individuals. That's super important. Like I mentioned earlier, I wear many hats. I am a wife, a mom, friend, you know, all those different things. But at the core, I would just say I'm just a delicate person. I'm very open, you know, to new experiences, things like that. I have gone through a lot of different things in my life that some people may or may not be privy to, that kind of dictates how I show up in my present life. And crazy enough, although mental health is my profession, that's also my passion. That's a part of who I am. And so I'm a professional, but I'm also like, I don't mind still living life, you know, still being youthful, doing things non-traditionally. And so that's, you know, a lot of who I am. And Phoenix and I are friends outside of our organization. We just have an amazing relationship where we can do business as well as be friends. And so
That's rare.
yes, it's so rare. I was just telling someone the other day, I'm so appreciative of that we can do that. But then also it's like when we do things on a personal level, just because we have the background that we have, we can't help but have thought-provoking conversations. We can go deeper than the surface of many relationships nowadays. So that's another part, I think, of both of us that's just innate. It's within us. It's not just our career, our profession, it's our passion. It's, you know, who we are.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why I asked you guys about who you are at the core, because once you find something that you're really passionate about, which I think that you guys are really passionate about She Inc. and the mission that you guys are on, it connects to who you are. I believe that what you are not just capable of doing, but what you care to do intertwines with your natural innate ability, your gifts, right? Those things that make you Daja, those things that make you Phoenix, right? The individual ties into your business. It's just that we need a little dollar because we're trying to eat as well. I noticed that you guys have mentioned Black women a lot. And millennial women in particular. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. I didn't know it was millennial women. That includes me. I feel so included. But why Black women in particular? Why is it necessary for Black women to have the kind of support She Inc. provides?
Yeah, I think because we don't often get it. You know, we don't often see it. It's not, and even if we do see it, it's not always easily accessible. And specifically for She, I feel like it's a non-traditional way of approaching mental health and access, because we do a lot of different things to address the barriers in mental health access. So, for example, we provide support groups, virtual support groups, where women throughout the country can, you know, join these groups, and it's at the convenience of the individual as well. And then it's free of cost. You know, how could you argue with that? And then we offer, under our newest initiative, For Us, By Us, is free therapy services. So like you were just mentioning, like to be able to do something subtracting like monetary gain is like the core of, you know, who we are. So we're able to provide that free service to clients or patients, and it's still our passion for it. Obviously we have to eat, so we have our jobs, but our nonprofit, you know, speaks to that passion. And then also, like we do specifically with She, we do service projects, you know, that addresses mental health care in different avenues outside of the therapeutic setting. So like we've given back to different classrooms, teachers in their classrooms, just alleviating that stress of having to have supplies. You know, that's something we provided that particular time, or adopting a family during the holidays. And those type of service acts really ties into the mental health when it comes to basic needs being met. So we're able to kind of tackle mental health from different aspects outside of the therapeutic room or therapeutic environment. And so just kind of getting back to your original question, I feel like Black women, millennial women, specifically, we don't often have spaces for things like this. We're often just doing for other people, completing tasks, action-oriented, but not often looking inward or having the space to do that in a way that it's supported. And so I think that's clearly, you know, our purpose and our mission with She.
Yeah, I was going to actually, say a lot of the similar things that Daja was expanding on, just the fact that there's not many spaces where Black women can come, and we see a lot of people that look like us, that talk like us, and are trying to achieve the same things that we're trying to achieve. I think, with Daja and I attending grad school together, it kind of opened up our eyes even more to see that we need to create a space where a woman could come in with similar issues as a millennial, a Black woman already as a minority, and be able to feel comfortable in a space expressing themselves. I think Black women have a certain magic within ourselves that no one could duplicate. Well, they try, but no one can really duplicate what we do. And I think even just the Black community in itself, we have our own dialect, we have our own colloquialisms that are not necessarily understood by the stereotypical white male, coming to listen to your problems. And so I think there's been plenty of times where, I've seen an experience where, someone could come in and say, yeah, me and her beefing. And they're like, what does that mean when you say, beefing? And so I think it's just so important that, we eliminate a lot of barriers that Black people face on a daily with being able to have a space where you can come and be yourself. And I think she really touches on that specifically within the Black community and Black women, where you can show up and be yourself, and we can discuss the issues that we're facing and connect on that and just be real with one another. I think in today's society, it's not a lot of real, and I think it helps us grow when we feel like we do have someone that has our back and understands the struggles that we go through.
Absolutely. When you mentioned that whole language barrier thing, that's real, because Black is not just a race, it's a culture. I think every race is its own culture. I remember I complimented someone on the streets. I was like, okay, here. And she looked at me like, okay. Like she didn't understand that I was complimenting her hair, to say, oh, your hair looks nice. So she just gave me thank you. And as simple as that and funny as that story may be, like just in that very moment, I could go off feeling misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
And even especially if I'm in a space where I don't have many friends and I go out into the public and I'm talking to a stranger and I'm trying to have a pleasant exchange with a stranger, but they don't understand how I compliment, that can make me feel lonely. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that through She Inc. and more specifically like the virtual support groups, because that's one way in which you guys reach out to us. Yes, that's like one practical way in which you take these Black millennial women who might be out there feeling very alone and feeling very lonely, and give them a space where they can freely be themselves and be understood, be seen, right? And being understood without having to interpret the words they're saying or their expressions. So it kind of gets rid of that tough part of communication, so we can get to the meat of the matter, which is mental health, right? So I absolutely love that you guys provide that safe space, that familiar space. It's so necessary. So what would a virtual support group look like?
Well, it would just depend. Daja and I, we also meet with the facilitator, and we actually attend as well, where we'll have a specific topic that we believe relates to our population or the masses. And we'll also do sometimes a survey to see what our following is looking for and need of. And from there, we would do an 8-week session, which is broken up into 4 different sessions that we do bi-weekly, discussing various topics. And so within that, we'll discuss, like we just finished one about New Year Better Me. And so from that, just discussing ways that we can better ourselves without necessarily, listening to the old saying of New Year, New You, because we're still the same person. We're just wanting to become better people. And so we'll do that. And then with ourselves and the facilitator, we'll break down 3 to 4 different ways that we can really build upon that topic.
Mm-hmm. What is one, I want to say challenge, one popular challenge that you notice among Black millennial women
Yeah, I would say just thinking about the Black millennial woman and just our experiences thus far, I would say there's a need in the space of a few things. Confidence in today's society, confidence and kind of like self-esteem, and then also juggling between managing your own expectations, like what you expected life to be at this phase, and possibly feeling disappointed that it's not there. And then that turning into like self-doubt. And like I said, the confidence kind of intertwined in that. I think from my experience, I find a lot of women, specifically in the millennial generation, we tend to take on a lot or wanting to be seen in a certain way without doing like the internal work of things and getting to the core of why we are the way we are. Why do we feel so pressured to be at a certain stage right now? Why do we feel rushed? And thinking about how, families or self-inflicted pressures play a part in those decisions and those roles. I think those two stand out the most to me. And how to navigate that and also live a fulfilled life,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just being able to show up as our authentic selves without feeling the need to be apologetic about it or feeling the need to water it down. I think, especially for those of us that are in the corporate world also, we do a lot of code switching that is tiring, to say the least. And I think what we try and do with any event or support group that we host is allowing everyone to show up as our authentic selves. Like, yes, I am a professional and I love Boosie, like just that duality that both things can be true. It doesn't have to be a or situation. It can be an and. And so I think, like we say, the Black millennial woman, we are finding ourselves kind of in between of wanting to have that traditional aspect of wanting to be a wife and a mother, but, also having the role of today of wanting to achieve our dreams and to be successful in whatever our passion is. And so I think we have a lot of that of, learning that we can be the end all be all, but we don't necessarily have to be. We can be successful and be a mom. We can do all of these things and not necessarily let one thing go, but also that we don't have to feel pressured to say yes to everything, and that we can allow others to shine as well. And so I think it's just really learning how to have that duality of being a modern woman in today, but still achieving those traditions that we once knew.
Yeah, amazing. And I feel like showing up as your confident, authentic self comes from a place of healing, right? It comes from a healed place. If you never liked yourself before, you would have to be going through a process of healing where, okay, you're learning to know who you are, number one, and like who you are, so that wherever you do show up, you show up as exactly who you are, authentically who you are, and you're confident in that, right? So since I mentioned the word healing, that is a beautiful segue into my next question. What are signs that one needs healing and immediate mental health care?
So there are a lot of signs, but the top 5 that I would say for us is just feeling very sad, withdrawn or unmotivated. And I know that we have our own ruts and, things like that, but this will be for an extended period, more than 2 weeks. Number 2, it's definitely one of the biggest signs, but planning to or trying to harm yourself or even others. Sometimes we have a lot of things that kind of overshadow what we're going through. And I think the last year with just the suicide rate has really shone a light on just how difficult it is out here in life. It's hard. And so with that, we also have out of control or risk-taking behaviors, severe mood swings, but also drastic changes in behavior, hygiene, or sleeping habits. And so being that she wants to advocate for the Black woman, we also say that you can also help someone that's struggling with mental health. So assessing for their risk of suicide or harm. And that means that if someone says something to you that, they want to harm themselves, taking them seriously and trying to assist them with getting to the appropriate resource. Listening non-judgmentally, that's the biggest thing. A person will open up if they feel like they can tell you what's going on without feeling judged about it. Giving that person reassurance and information. So if you're watching this live and you know about She and you encounter another Black woman that's really struggling with feeling seen or heard, passing on our resource to them, because it could be an aid, to helping get them to other mental health resources. Encouraging appropriate professional help. I know that we all like to talk with our girlfriends, but, it's best that we always get them in touch with someone that is licensed to seek help. There's so many conversations that Daja and I have, and we're like, yeah, but I'm not your therapist. It's like, I know about it, but you also need someone that's not going to be biased, that's also going to help empower you to get to your own healing. But also encouraging self-help and other support strategies. And so, even though you can't be that therapist for your friend, maybe you can check in on them. Maybe y'all can go out for lunch and, just kind of de-stress, not talk about the kids, just talk about your passion. So different things like that to notice for someone else. It's also helpful. There's also times where we may not see it in ourselves, but someone else may see it. That's a trusted friend or family member. And so also being willing to listen to whenever we have a loved one tell us their concerns.
Mm-hmm. And what would you do in a situation where you tell a friend who obviously is in need of therapy, they're in need of counseling, but they're unwilling to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see that they're in dire need of it, but they're unwilling to. And I can't say that they can use money as an excuse because She Inc. is here, okay?
Correct.
But say if they know about She Inc., but they still are unwilling to, make that effort, what do you do in a situation like that? What can we do?
I know for me, I'm a very transparent person with my friends about what I go through as well. And so even though, they may be hesitant, I'm also very out loud with it that I also go to therapy. I go to couples therapy and I also go to individuals therapy. And it's helpful for me to just be able to talk as a regular person, not as the therapist, not as the entrepreneur, but to be able to talk as SaPhenixx and what I'm going through at the time. And so I would encourage them, that I'll walk that path with you. Maybe we can do the support group together. But, I also have to say that in order for therapy to work, the person has to be willing. And so all that you can do is continue to encourage them. But they also have to be willing to take that step. And just being open is really the biggest thing that you can do. If they're open to the resources, typically, the encouragement follows from there. But continuing to reassure your friend, continuing to check in, even if they're not ready. Hey, just thinking about you today. How are you doing? Things like that make a world of difference.
So you're saying continue to be a friend at the base of it all, is just to continue to be their confidant or confidant, however you pronounce that word, right? And to let them know that you are genuine, you have their best interest at heart, that in and of itself can do a lot for the individual. That's good. That's good. I could see how that could be useful, because that individual is reassured that they're not alone. And I think when one understands that you're not alone, it takes a lot of pressure off of them. But I have heard of situations where, like the friend might trust you so much that they keep unloading, and you are their friend. And like you said, you want to continue to be their confidant so that they can always know they have someone in their corner that has their best interest at heart. But if they are too comfortable with that and they are constantly unloading, what do you, as the friend who is the victim of that unloading, how do you handle that situation?
I'll just add in really quickly, because I had that experience, and this was before I had the clinical experience I have now. And so before like boundaries was just like this big, concept.
Yeah.
I realized then that I had to set boundaries with that friend. Although like I want to be here, I'm glad to be the support person for you. I also have my own mental health. I have my own things that I'm dealing with. So being able to kind of set the tone, like this is how I can support you. And these are ways that I cannot, and just being real with the friend. That's typically my personal approach to things. Like Phoenix was saying, like you can provide resources to people. Hey, I suggest doing this. We can do this together. But also like at the end, it's their decision to make as far as what they want to do. And so then it becomes a decision of you as the friend, like, okay, how can I support this person where it's not detrimental for my own growth? And I think that's a hard conversation sometimes to have with a friend, because you don't want to feel like you're abandoning them or pushing them away, but you have to be realistic and protect you as well as your friend. And sometimes that can be a more of a motivator for them, like, hold on, this is serious. I need to look into this more. If she's willing to say I have to back up, there's something that I need to look in the mirror about, so that's typically, I know, my approach.
Mm-hmm. When does it become detrimental to your health? Like, for example, you are that friend who your friend trusts and keeps unloading on you, but because you're so naturally caring and you're so naturally giving and you just want to see the best in them, it's detrimental to your own health, but you are not noticing that it's detrimental. So to the individual who doesn't notice that it's hurting them, right? Constantly being the one that their friends come to, constantly, but they're not aware of it. So what signs can they look for in themselves to then become aware that, okay, this is actually not good for me. I need to take a step back and set boundaries.
I would say once you notice that you're constantly emptying your cup for them. I used to think, well, we can't pour from an empty cup, but I had to also listen to a professor say that, no, your cup is supposed to be full. You're supposed to be giving whatever is pouring in addition to that. And so I think it's difficult because, as women, we want to be there for everyone. We want to be the backbone. But I think also when we notice that we're also putting ourselves in unhealthy situations, that can also be detrimental to us, whether we are giving our very last financially to that person, whether we are inserting ourselves in that person's relationship to protect that person. I think there's a lot of different things that we have to really evaluate of, would this be healthy for me if I continue to overextend myself in this particular situation? And I think sometimes we have to learn that also a true friend is also being able to hold each other accountable. And so, it doesn't have to be mean when we set boundaries, but it can be, sis, have you, called the therapist that I gave you, because this is a person that will focus solely on your problems. And I think sometimes it can be one-sided when that person is solely unloading their issues. But if I'm the friend and I'm not trained as a professional to give you assistance, then how do I empower you to move towards your goals? Even being a therapist and being a friend, sometimes I come home, I talk all day and I don't want to say a word to anyone. And so, we have to be aware that sometimes our self-care is also creating that boundary that, I am helping my clients. I can't help you also. I can be a friend in that capacity and encourage you to do the right thing, but, you have to make that step to be able to seek professional help.
Correct. And I would think that if you're starting to feel drained at the end of the call, like it wasn't edifying to you in any way, and before you even get on the call, but you just see on your caller ID, Johnny coming through, and then all of a sudden you feel yourself either bracing, right? Because you're like, oh, we're about to take on a huge wave tide right now. Let me just, so you tighten up, or you roll your eyes or you sigh heavily, right? So I think if any of us start responding that way when a call comes in from Johnny, when we need to talk to Johnny about what they need help with, right? Like, how, introduce them to resources. And I think what we can do as a friend, if we care so much about them, is do the research for them. I think that that's safe to do, right? Do the research for them and just literally hand it to them. Here are some list of therapists that you can go to. And this is how this process goes and da, da, da. And, leave the rest in God's hands.
I agree. I was just going to add, because I was also thinking about personal experiences too. When it becomes a point where you feel like you're taking on another person's problem more than they are, like you're prioritizing it more than they are, that becomes like an energy shift in a relationship, which obviously results in exhaustion or, like you said, avoidance of the friend. Like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person because what's next, so taking on somebody else's problems as well.
Perfect. And so as we continue to talk about healing, I understand it's an ongoing process. I can honestly speak to feeling a little annoyed sometimes at the fact that it's ongoing. It's like, why can't I just do a course in healing and then get over it, be on the other side and move on with life? But then you will have healed from one thing, or so you thought, and then some triggering thing happens and you realize, I got to go back to that thing, go back to the source of that issue or of that challenge and figure out, okay, why did I respond this way when this person spoke to me in that way? What can I do here? So then you're going through the process of fixing, healing. It can be so exhausting, right? But what does active healing look like? Let's speak to that. Because since healing has to be an ongoing process, I need to make sure that I'm actually continuously engaging in that process. So what does active healing look like?
Yeah, I'd say it can look differently for different people, depending on what's going on, and not getting too deep into like diagnosis and, things like that. Just thinking about the healing process starts from wanting to move from an unhealthy state to obviously a healthy state. And in order to do that, there has to be a first step of looking in a mirror and seeing some deficiency or some type of like, I need to fix this, some type of problem you're trying to solve. And then next is obviously pulling back the layers like an onion to get to the core of it. You got to pull out the dirt and the grime so you can obviously look at some type of clear platform. And then being able to look at what can I fill that space up with, more coping skills or strategies that's healthier, or even environments or people that are conducive to your healing journey. Like you've mentioned, it can be exhausting, just calling a thing, it can be exhausting because it's a process. And just as humans, a lot of times we want things to happen faster. We want the resolve. We want the end result. Forget all the in between.
Right.
But essentially, it's the process, the journey that is the healing. There's not like on step 10, that's it. It's the journey that's the healing process. And that's often what I, tell my clients, kind of normalizing that it's exhausting, but it's also worth it. Another thing I think that's important when it comes to the healing journey, understanding that you will be triggered. That doesn't mean that you are not healed or there's something necessarily wrong, but that's just an awareness, your body reacting to what's happening. But being triggered is just your body's reaction. And so being that if you have gone through something, you feel like you've healed from it, or you've gone through your healing journey and you're triggered, it's just a matter of using those skills that you learned to deal with that trigger. So a clear indication that maybe you're not moving forward in your healing journey is you're triggered by something, you resort back to old behaviors, or you're using avoidance. Versus like, hey, I'm aware this is my trigger. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I've learned to do that's healthy, or a healthier option. And I think I wanted to make that clear distinction, because a lot of people think because I'm triggered, that's something's wrong, or I haven't healed from something. And I think we just need to make sure we have that conversation. Like, it's okay that you are triggered by something. It's more so how you're reacting to that trigger as an indicator of where you are in your healing process.
Beautiful. And that is so necessary to know, because that trigger word, when I hear trigger, I think negative, right? But what I'm understanding from what you're saying is the trigger actually can be useful to you to help you recognize what is going on internally, right? So it's kind of that that measuring stick, if you will, right? It just lets you know, okay, I'm here right now with this internal healing. I am yet to, be there instead. And this is what these are things that I can do in order to get there. But don't be discouraged by the fact that you got triggered, but that it's actually your brain, your mind protecting you, defending you, and saying, hey, you got to implement a strategy here to become more powerful and to grow in this area.
Yeah, most definitely. And just to add on to that, the trigger is a certain level of self-awareness. And I think that's a huge thing that most people lack when it comes to like dealing with trauma and things like that, because we aren't aware of like how our experiences truly shape how we show up. So if you're aware of your triggers, you can not avoid them, but have a sense of readiness. Like if this were to happen, I know I can do this. This is helpful for me. So having that high-end level of awareness can be very beneficial.
Beautiful.
And that's a sign of growth, to be able to be aware to say that, hey, that's a trigger for me. Like Daja said, change and healing is a roller coaster of emotions. It's not always just feeling free and I'm free from these shackles, but it can also be painful. I think initially when you start your journey of healing, it's painful to have to unlearn everything that you've known for these 30 plus years or however old you are, because we have a foundation of our experiences, what we know to be true, what our family has taught us. And sometimes healing is being able to look in the mirror and like, dang, I am the problem sometimes, and being able to work through that and to be able to overcome certain barriers so that we can better ourselves. And so healing is not always sunshine and fun experiences. It's also being able to really face ourselves to become a better person.
Correct. And we don't have to be afraid of that whole process, because the process is the healing. Right?
Absolutely.
Like you said, Daja, it's not like step 10, you're healed, move on.
Yeah.
It's the journey. The journey is the actual healing, right? So
Absolutely.
that makes the whole idea of the healing process, it feels less arduous and more doable, right? When we perceive it as, okay, the process is where it's at. So it's not, let's get to step so and so. It's the process itself that you are actually actively living and going through. That is it. So make it the best process that you can. Make it productive, but make it also fun and enjoy it, because that's what you're going to be living anyways. This process, I think life is the process. Living is the process, right? So I love that. I love that, because I think now that a lot of listeners, their perspectives are shifted. And when you have that shifted perspective, we will move better. We'll move differently, and we'll stop anticipating step 10. We'll stop, because sometimes when we get to step 10, we're underwhelmed. We're like, is this what I was working for all my life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The process is where it's at, ladies. Oh my goodness. Please. I hope we really understand what that means. All right. So my final question will be, how would you define the role of the woman in modern society? So I think, first of all, we would have to define what modern society is.
Yeah, so modern society would just be the world that we are living in today, with all of the changes. I don't even want to say post-COVID, but given COVID, and all of the things that continues to happen in our lifetime, that we've lived through. But I was able to find a very good quote that says, a modern woman is anyone who is living in the now, who questions, who asks, who challenges, who stands up for her rights and for others. And so I think as a modern woman living in today's society, we are challenging a lot more. We are pushing the envelope a lot more. And we're learning that it's just as important to say no as what you say yes to. And a lot of the time, she has discussed what it means to be this superwoman or have this superwoman syndrome. And it's funny because that term was coined in 1984, and it's basically occurring when a woman neglects herself because she is seeking to do it all to perfection and stretching herself too thin. And I think in the past, we've kind of, set ourselves on this high pedestal to be this, I'm this superwoman, I can do everything. But the key word in that definition is the fact that we're neglecting ourselves. We're stretching ourselves too thin. I think we have this idea that fulfilling all of these roles and responsibilities to perfection is the way that we achieve happiness, but it's really not. It's how we feel stressed, it's how we become extremely anxious, depressed, and how we exhaust ourselves. And so, we also advocate for the modern day woman to learn how to take off the cape. And we advocate with steps of asking for help. It's okay to delegate out. That's part of being a boss, knowing what you can take on and knowing what you can hire for or what you can send out to other people. Taking time out for yourself, so that self-care, whether you're doing something at the end of the day for yourself, like a bubble bath, watching a favorite movie, or having a girls' night out. How we said learning to say no, and being firm in that and not feeling bad or sorry that we had to say no. Setting achievable goals. I know for myself, if someone comes to me with a request, I know what is realistic for me in my calendar and what it's not. There's a lot of time, even when Daja and I are talking about our schedules, we are realistic. Like, I don't even want to set out time in this day. This day is packed. Let's do another day. Let's do another week. And so, I've also had to learn with one of these last things is letting go of perfectionism. And so, Daja and I were even talking about this, not even an hour or so prior to the meeting, that the fact that we can do everything doesn't mean that we should. And if we do take on, we have to be okay with knowing that not everything is going to be at 100% or done the way that we would like it to be. And so I think with us, it's just knowing that duality of how I say having those traditional standards and foundations, but also knowing that we have goals to achieve and being able to take that cape off, but still knowing that it can get done. It's just differences in how we have to approach it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Just to add really quickly, because what Phoenix said just sparked a thought for me. Thinking about the modern woman, I think a lot of times we equate doing to like success, or doing as like that makes us a woman because we're able to get everything done. But at the end of the day, we're depleted. Or there's resentment. I had to do X, Y, and Z. And, there's like a comparison to things. So a part of it, I think, just being a modern woman, and this is something that I've, personally struggled with, is relearning things and how I want to be in this role as a woman. And so finding a balance between like, I want to be able to do these things career-wise. I want to be able to do these things like for my family, but also understanding the trade-off. And being able to identify, okay, maybe not in this time frame, but maybe in a few years, or really truly assessing what's realistic for my well-being, as a Black woman. And I think just naturally, we want to be able to help. We want to be able to extend, because we know that that's an option for us. We can do that. It's almost like we were built to do that. Correct. But like Phoenix said, just because we can, that doesn't mean we should.
So Daja, you said learning, and then for you, Phoenix, you mentioned asking questions, right? That is usually and or sometimes considered a sign of weakness, because when you're the modern woman who's wanting to show up as Miss Powerful, right? Because again, I think society has put the cape on us, right? So we want to wear the cape that society put on us so that we don't disappoint society. We want to live up to the expectations they have for us. And so we don't want to ask questions. We want to appear wise. We want to appear all-knowing, right? But I do believe that in asking questions, you are maintaining a student posture. And when you always have that student posture, wisdom is in your hands at all times. When you understand you don't know all things and you decide that you need to go learn by asking questions, and or doing some, as well as doing research, right? Then is when you gain understanding, you gain knowledge, you become wise that way. So I want to, encourage people to find strength, and understand that you are actually quite strong and wise and smart to decide to ask questions, and it's okay to do just that. I wrote down as you were speaking, Phoenix, that good management is a representation of strength. Good management, because you mentioned the word management at one point. And I think you were speaking to just kind of how you manage yourself as an individual. So to take, I don't like to use the word control, it's managing, right? So to manage yourself, you are being that boss, right? So it is a representation of strength. So I do like what I'm hearing, and I love that you were speaking to that, because I think everybody wants to be that admired woman in the society that we currently live in. We want to be that kind of woman that men are attracted to. We want to be that kind of woman that pulls money. We want to be that kind of woman that just all the things that we want for ourselves attract, themselves to us or connect themselves to us. But pace yourself. That is so necessary, right? Manage yourself, manage your life, say yes to something. When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. When you say no to one thing, you're saying yes to something. So you're always saying yes or no, either way you take it. So when you say yes to overbooking yourself, you're saying no to self-care. And that's an issue, because then you can just go ahead and burn that cape, because you can't be there for anybody anyway, right? So I wanted to ask this last thing. I know I said the last question was the last question. I'm giving pastor, but that's okay. I always ask my guests this, just out of curiosity. What books are you reading right now, if any? Or what is the most recent book you've read?
I would say I am not reading anything right now. And it's funny because we talk a lot about the Superwoman syndrome, but I'm actually living and breathing it every day of, okay, what can I cut off, from myself? And so I'm not reading anything, but I'm also taking my own homework of actively setting boundaries of what can I do to free myself up more.
Correct. So you're implementing the yes, no, right?
Yep, as we speak.
I love it. So there's the awareness and then the application. That is management, my friends.
And the fact that we fall back into that, it doesn't just end. We'll say, oh yeah, I'm letting it down, and then 2 weeks from now we have 3-4 meetings that have time conflicts because we don't think about saying no. We just say, yeah, that'll be cool, and we don't think about ourselves. So yeah, it's a constant practice for sure.
For sure. Love it.
I'd say I suck at just reading one book and sticking to it. I'm like, let me order another book, and I didn't even finish this one. But personally, I've been doing more so, I guess, resourcing books, more so for like my craft, my clients. So I can't even think of the name of this book, but it's about adult children who have like attachment style issues, who come from parents who were emotionally immature. I can't think of the exact title, but those are like the constructs around that. And then also like a DBT skills book working on distress tolerance. So it's kind of like not your average reading, but resourceful for sure.
Yeah. I tend to ask that question because it kind of lets me know what headspace you guys are in for right now. For me, I've been reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I've mentioned that about 10 to 20 times every time I hop on a Zoom to talk to my guests, because I'm still on that book, because I'm not consistent with the reading. Because it's so meaty. It's so meaty. Like there's so much to it. So it can't be like a novel. I have to take it in pieces. But I just sometimes forget to go back to the last piece. and continue from then on. But yes, the kind of books we read kind of tell us what our intentions are for ourselves. Right. And sometimes an expression of the intentions we have for ourselves is not just through book reading, but through awareness and application of our yes and our no, so we can manage our lives better. So we can be that boss. Right. Absolutely. So I even as I was saying, the whole be a boss thing, I just feel like we should not put on the cape that society puts on us, but put on our own capes. Like whatever a superwoman looks like to you, the individual, be that. Because I think you should work on impressing yourself first. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree, definitely. I think a lot of that comes from having to maybe relearn yourself too, because a lot of times we fall under the category of which tradition or what we were taught to do or what we think or see and whatnot, and it might not feel comfortable. And so being able to relearn and define our own standard of, like you said, what a boss is, or what type of cape we want to wear, if we want to wear a cape,
Right.
The whole soft life thing, that's the thing now.
Yeah.
We get to choose, really immersing yourself in your own personal power. Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it. Any last remarks from you, Phoenix?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Shanese, for allowing us and creating this space for us to come and share. I think both Daja and I really enjoy moments like these where we can kind of spread the gospel of mental health, especially for communities that closely resemble us. And so anytime we get that platform to share and just have a conversation, that we can broadcast to others in need to provide that enlightenment, it's always great for us. So I just wanted to thank you for creating this space and for inviting us.
Absolutely. I'm always inspired by individuals like yourself who you give of yourself, to be there for people. You see a need that the world has, and you see that in your hands are some answers to those problems in the world and to the needs that people have. And so you have availed yourself, and that is commendable, right? And so I appreciate you guys coming here to talk with me about this and to shed some light on mental health and what healing looks like. And I know that my listeners have gleaned some things that they can definitely take with them into the rest of their lives. Thank you, ladies, for putting together She Inc. Thank you. Okay. Every Black woman, millennial, whether they're aware of She Inc. or not, thanks you, because now we have another organization out there that is for us, that we have accessible and available to us. So we have one less thing to complain about.
Yes.
Thank y'all so much. Have a good and lovely rest of the day. Y'all, please enjoy your weekend and make it last for more than 10 seconds.
10.5.
Right.
10.5. Practice that self-care. Let's keep on being aware of ourselves and keep implementing what we need to implement. Enjoy the process. Hello.
Yes.
Because the process is literally where it's at. There's no step 10. Your healing is here. You're good to go. Otherwise, we'd be dead and have no more reason to live. All right.
Yes.
But thank y'all ladies so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.